How's it going, guys? Colgan here with a Wizard's Lizard, formerly known as Crypt Run, which I did play a demo of back in August. The demo, while I thought it was fun, I did have some minor gripes with the game. Now thankfully I can say that all the problems I had with the game back then, they're not present at release. The game has come along very nicely. Lost Decade Games have done a great job. The game is a lot of fun. I've been playing this a lot over the last few days. So without spoiling too much about the game, you play as a lizard who is on a mission to rescue his master, a wizard, from death. So you battle your way through 5 procedurally generated dungeons, which basically means that each room in each dungeon is randomly generated so that no playthrough is ever the same. It adds a lot of replayability to the game. I have had some very simple dungeons, and I have had some nightmarish dungeons that were just out to punish me. So for this video, I'm just going to play through the first dungeon, showcase some of the items, explain some of the items, talk you through the features, and maybe show you a secret or two if I'm lucky enough to find them in this run. I don't want to spoil too much because the game is not going to release until January 22nd. However, if you want me to do a full run through of the game, I'll be happy to do so after the game releases. So I'm sure you're just here for the gameplay, so I'm going to jump into the game now and stop rambling here on the main menu. So here we are, this is our character, the lizard. You control with WSAD and you attack with the arrow keys. You can also use an Xbox 360 controller. So we do have a little football down here that you can mess around with. That'll just keep bouncing around the entire room. So this chest of gold here, when you first play the game, that's only going to be 1,000 gold. But as you see, I have 10,000 gold. Because every time you rescue a civilian in one of the dungeons, you get 500 gold extra when you start the game. So you see, I've been playing this a lot, so I start with 10,000. So I'm going to go into the shop here and show you. See, we have daggers here, you have a spear, you have an axe, you have different types of boots here, you got gloves and abacus, you got a blood potion there, you got a manual, a lantern. So basically what these items are, this book here, this is the monster manual. So what this manual does is when you attack an enemy, it shows you their HP bar. So it lets you know how close they are to death. It's very useful for new players. Now this item here, the abacus, when you attack an enemy, the abacus will show you how much damage you're doing. Again, this is another item that's very useful for new players. The 2 items I've bought, when you start out, you're probably going to be using these a lot. But after you've played the game a bit, you're going to realize how much damage each weapon does, how much HP each enemy has. So after you've played a while, these 2 items are more or less going to be useless to you. Here we have the Blood of the Cheetah potion. I have no idea what this item does. I've been using it for a while. I found it in one of the later dungeons and I'm baffled by what it does. I have absolutely no clue. So here we have the lantern. This item is very useful, especially for dark rooms. If you see my character, he's got a very small light around him, but when we purchase the lantern, very well lit area. So I'm not going to purchase anything else. The first dungeon is, in fact, I'll purchase the ranger gloves and the ranger boots. So they're probably the ranger boots, the ranger gloves, they're from the second dungeon, the forest dungeon, which is actually a hidden dungeon, which you can find from the first dungeon, which I will show you. So I'm going to go along here now and move into the first dungeon. You have 2 locked rooms here. It starts with a lot of crystals on the door, and as you see, there's only 1 crystal there, but at the bottom I still have 3 crystals there. So this is the sewer. The sewer is the dungeon after the forest. So I believe you can unlock this and then skip ahead directly into the sewer. I'm not exactly sure how I've unlocked 2 of the crystals so far, but I'm going to keep trying until I do. So you're going to collect all your money here. I should point out that the items you saw in the shop in town cost half the price as they do in a dungeon. For example, the abacus and the monster manual, they only cost me 1,250. But if I was to buy them in one of the dungeons, for example, if I found a shop in a dungeon here, they would cost 2,500 each. So it does pay to stock up on the items in the town before you actually go into a dungeon. Now you may notice some ghosts around here. That's because you will have to die to solve some puzzles. For example, there are some keys and some chests hidden behind walls that you can't access unless you're dead. Just like there are some chests and keys that you can't access unless you're alive. Now I will suggest you keep your eye on the tombstones here that make the wall for each dungeon, because there are secret areas you can get to. If you see a tombstone that's very heavily cracked, you can shoot it. For example, you see my sword just bounces off of these walls. But if you had a heavily cracked tombstone there, you can shoot it, and that will open up a door to a secret area. I found I found my one by complete accident. I was trying to shoot an enemy. The enemy stepped out of the way and I ended up doing damage to the wall, which kind of surprised me. I didn't realize you could do that. So I kept shooting it then, and it opened up a secret door. I went through and it instantly completed the dungeon I was in and moved me to the next dungeon, which was the forest level. I should also point out that the sewer level also has a hidden area in the wall that you can destroy and move on to the Thieves' Den level. In all of these chests, you're going to find leather equipment in the first dungeon here, but as I have the ranger boots, the leather boots are going to be useless to me. Do be careful of some of the chests though. There are mimics, and the mimics are an absolute pain to kill. Here in this room, this is basically your resurrection room. If you die, you're going to become a ghost. And if you die while you're a ghost, that's it, it's game over. But when you're a ghost, if you come into this room and you step in this circle, you will revive yourself into the land of the living. And here we have a ring of defense. This room, it's kind of different compared to all of the other zombie rooms. You see the piles of rubble on the ground. You can only step on these piles of rubble once each. However, in pretty much every other room, these piles of rubble can be stepped on anywhere between 3 to 5 times. I don't know why it's different for this room. Maybe just because there's a lot of rubble. Although I have seen some rooms where there were upwards of 20 piles of rubble and I ran over all of them about 3 times, and there was just such a ridiculous amount of enemies on the screen that the game slowed down so much. But because the dungeons are completely randomized, you could get a very easy layout. Like, you could take 3 or 4 steps through rooms and you could be at the boss room. Other dungeons, they could be so ridiculously long, you know, that it could take you 20 minutes to get to the boss room. So it's completely random. And that room I was just in, you saw a key surrounded by the wall. I can't get to that key until I die, until I'm in ghost form. And that key, it's going to open up a chest in the sewer. And with that key, with that green key, you're going to open up a green chest in the sewer. And in the green chest in the sewer, you're going to find a red key, which opens up a chest, I believe, in the Thieves' Den. Which, it's either the Thieves' Den or the Crypt, which is the final dungeon, which will give you an item called Flight of the Feather, which I'm not sure what it does. Just like the Blood of the Cheetah, I'm not entirely sure what that item does. And as you saw there, you can find enemies inside barrels, which can be a complete pain. Now here, this room, this is one of the shops. This NPC usually sells blueprints. In the first dungeon, blueprints cost 5,000 coin. You come in here, you purchase the blueprint, and when you go back to the shop in the town, there'll be an extra item for sale. So it's a good way to stock up on some pretty nice items before you start your next playthrough. I should probably pick up that leather helmet. In each dungeon you will get different equipment. First dungeon, leather equipment. The second dungeon, or sorry, the secret dungeon, which is the forest, you will get the ranger equipment. Then the next one, which is the sewer, I believe, you will get steel or steel plate. Now here's something very interesting about this area. If the shopkeeper has an item, but you can't afford to purchase it, you don't have to do without the item. You can attack the shopkeeper. You can fight the shopkeeper. Problem is, these two flaming little pillars here, they will fire fireballs at you while fighting, and he'll basically run around in a square in the room. So we're going to attack him here. The first time I fought the shopkeeper, it was actually in the Thieves' Den. It was the first time I realized you could fight the shopkeeper. And then in the next room was the boss room, and to my surprise, the boss was actually a zombie merchant surrounded by 4 of those towers. Now, I'm not sure if that was completely coincidental. At the time, I wasn't sure if it was coincidental or if it was actually because I killed the merchant. It turns out it was coincidental. The boss for that dungeon is just a zombie merchant. So here's the axe. Basically, it's the same as the sword, same damage. The difference is the axe can deflect off walls. And I've noticed when it deflects off a wall and then hits an enemy, it seems to do more damage than just firing at the enemy. So I'm going to stick with the sword. And here we have the monster manual, which I already have. So you see the reason for killing the merchant. If you attack the merchant, you can then just steal the items. Unfortunately, if you go to the NPC back in the previous room where you saw the female NPC who sells the blueprints, you can't steal the blueprints, you can't attack her. I have tried. So I'm just trying to keep my eye open for the cracked tombstone, just to show you what it looks like, to show you the secret area. I won't actually go into the secret area, but I'll just show you the pillar to look out for, so you know what to do, know what to destroy to move ahead. And here is another room, basically where you have a trapped civilian. If you rescue this civilian, the next time I go back to town and start a new game, instead of starting with 10,000 gold, I will start with 10,500 gold. Be careful, you can kill him. Just gonna shoot the barrel, you run up to the civilian and you press the space bar. Thank you for saving me. So when I go back to town now, when I start a new game, I will have 10,500 gold instead of 10,000. So each civilian that you rescue will add 500 gold to the chest at the start. Here's the boss of the first map. Was hoping not to enter this room until very last. It can be pretty simple to kill here. If you lure him into the explosive barrels, you can do a decent amount of damage to him. Unfortunately, I destroyed 2 of them already. And each of these piles of rubble can be stepped on 5 times, and he will summon zombies in. So the boss isn't the problem here. The problem is all the zombies he starts spawning in. Basically, what I like to do for this boss is I like to step on all the piles of rubble and basically use up all the zombies as quickly as possible. And there is an advantage to stepping on all the rubble in every room. Each zombie that you spawn, when you kill them, they can drop 50 gold coin. So if you're stuck for money, or if you think you're going to need money, just summon all the zombies, kill them. They're very easy to kill. They're not really a problem. There, we hit him with an explosive barrel, done a decent amount of damage. There's only 1 explosive barrel left. When I kill this boss, I'll show you the next room, which is the treasure room. It's got a gold chest in it, which usually carries some type of weapon. Unfortunately, sometimes the game can troll you, and when you open up the chest, there'll be nothing in it. Which I have had happen a few times, and it's so annoying. Your weapon does a pathetic amount of damage to the boss. I believe he has something like, must be over 1000 HP, since you're only doing 10 damage a time, and you're doing such pathetic amounts of damage to him. You see I'm barely scratching his HP bar with each attack. You have to attack him about 5 times just to see a smidgen of health removed. Now when I'm done with this fight, I'll go in, I'll show you the next room, then I'll go back exploring, trying to find the hidden area. Now I am going to get myself killed here, intentionally, by the way, just so that I can show you what the resurrection circle does and show you how to get the key in the walled area. Now the problem is when I die, all of these ghosts are going to start attacking me, and you see those 2 piles of skulls there, they will summon in more ghosts. But thankfully the ghosts are incredibly weak, they're like 1 hit to kill them. There are a lot of different weapon types, which you may have seen back at the shop in town. You had the dagger, you had the spear, you had the axe. There are also a lot more that you can't buy that you have to hope drop. You can get advanced forms of the daggers, which are royal daggers, which are basically like dual cutlass, and it fires 2 of them at a time. It's weaker than the sword, it only does 5 damage, but you can hit multiple targets. You can also get flaming spears, you can get ice swords, you can get, I believe, is it a lightning or a plasma sword, which I found in the last dungeon. You can get golden axes, you can get killer bees, which basically rapid fires bees at the enemy and does 10 damage. You can get boomerangs. I must say though, my favourite weapon so far has to be the ice sword, because when you hit an enemy with the ice sword, it turns them into a block of ice and it freezes them in place, and it lets you get like 4 or 5 free hits in on them before the ice actually thaws out. And as soon as the ice thaws out, you can just hit them again and turn them into another block of ice. So here we have the flaming spear, which I used last night in the final dungeon, and I ended up killing myself, because if you stand too close to whatever gets hit, the explosion will damage you. So that room you see below me, that is to complete the dungeon. If I step through that door, it will complete the dungeon, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move back now. And I'm going to try and find that secret area to show you. And I'm also going to pick up that key to show you how to get it. Problem being with ghost form now, all the previous rooms that I've cleared out, I'm now going to have to fight my way through most of them. Because when you kill an enemy in the land of the living, they have a chance at becoming a ghost, and you have those skull piles which summon more ghosts. So I'm going to check every room to see if I can find that cracked tombstone. It's actually much easier to find these secrets when you're in ghost form, because the map is entirely lit up, whereas when you're in the land of the living, it can be very dark. In the land of the dead here, you don't need to worry about having any of the lights in the corner of the room active. So I'm just checking everywhere. You'll see what the cracked tombstone looks like very easily. It's... hang on. Let's just kill these guys. Oh, and here we have Arthur's lance, I believe. So, you see this one here, it has a small crack in it. This one here is no crack. It's going to look like one of these at the top I'm standing beside, but it's going to be very heavily cracked with massive cracks. So I'm going to take Arthur's lance here, just to show you a different weapon. Here we have the key. You see, now that I'm dead, the walls are very see-through. You can just walk right through the walls there. So I've picked up the key. That key will be used in the sewer to open up the green treasure chest, like I said, which you can only access when you are dead. And in that chest you'll find the red key. And the red key is used in the final dungeon. I believe I said earlier it was used in the Thieves dungeon. I was wrong. It's actually used in the last dungeon, the crypt. So I still haven't found the cracked tombstone. I'm going to keep looking for it. I do want to find this just to show you what the secret areas are like. Nothing in here, unfortunately. It's not in this room either, from the looks of it. I may cut a lot of this travel out. And I'll show you how to resurrect yourself soon enough. As soon as I can find this room. If I can't... Oh, here it is. Just to my left. You see this cracked tombstone I'm standing right beside here? Very heavily cracked. Shoot it 3 times. It opens up. That will open up the forest dungeon. So if you find a cracked tombstone like that, you can destroy it and step right through it. And if you step through it, it will automatically complete the dungeon that you were in, and it will move you on to the next dungeon. I really would not suggest doing it until you find all of the equipment in the dungeon you're in. It's a good way to skip the boss if you don't want to fight the boss, or, you know, if you're having a lot of trouble fighting the boss in that dungeon, you can just go through the secret door and skip the boss. But please don't do it unless, you know, unless you have all the equipment from the dungeon you're in, because you will be taking a lot of damage in the next dungeon. So now I'm going to resurrect myself here. I should point out that once you enter the first dungeon, once you leave the town, you can't go back to the town for the duration of the game. You can only go back to the town when you start a new game. So when your character die, when you lose, or when you complete the game, you can go back to the town, but you can't just leave the dungeon and go back whenever you want. So do stock up on all of the items you can before you enter the dungeon. So now, I've shown you the secret area. I've shown you pretty much all the secrets I can here. I've completed the first dungeon. The game will release on Wednesday, January 22nd for, I believe, $15. There'll be a link in the description where you can check out the site, check out the game. The game is a lot of fun. Do pick it up. Back when I first played the demo, you know, I didn't have much hopes for this game. While I thought it was fun, I had a lot of minor gripes with this game, but they have done a great job with this game. It has come along very nicely. It's so much fun. Please do pick it up. It'll be out on Wednesday, January 22nd. So if you like this video, please leave a comment, rate, subscribe. It really helps us out. And like I said, once the game releases, if you want me to do a full run through of the game, I'll be more than happy to do that. So thanks for watching.